All right, welcome everybody. It's Friday, November 17th. Holy moly, this year is over pretty much. You're going to blink and it's going to be 2024. And I hope you've got some stuff working for the end of the year planning and all that stuff. And today, I'm happy to welcome some very, very talented people that have been involved in just about all the different aspects of the MSP ecosystem you could think of. And that's the very generous and community driving folks from Empath MSP. We've got Kyle Christensen from his studio in, I don't actually know where you live, Kyle.
I'm in San Diego.
San Diego, sunny San Diego. That's awesome. Alex is at the airport in
San
Tampa.
Diego.
And then Wes, where are you joining us from, Wes?
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
Also in Tampa. That's awesome. Well, I wanted to get you guys on the stream because obviously, well, first of all, did you notice as soon as you guys joined the stream that it sounds like this over on LinkedIn right now because you guys aren't posting.
Oh, I see what you mean. You're not wrong.
I see what you did there. But we have automation. We could be posting on LinkedIn right now and you wouldn't know it.
That is true. I guess you could have been Jedi mind tricking me the whole time. Meanwhile, like I thought Alex was on the stream. No, he's posting on LinkedIn right now. Well, if you don't leverage those automation tools, like can you, or even MSP, right? So that is the question. Well, you guys kind of just came together officially in the last few weeks as Empath MSP. And although the name Empath has been kind of floating around for a little bit here, it feels like it finally took the structure and form that it was meant to have. And so I wanted to ask you guys to maybe talk a little bit about Empath. What is Empath? I've heard a couple of people ask the question, what does Empath even do? The origin story, a little bit of that. And I'll dive into the rabbit holes as we go through as needed. Who wants to jump in?
Sure. I'll get us kicked off. I typically start these things off, and then we know the song and dance here a bit. So where Empath came from was, I remember in my days at Perch. For those of you that don't know, I was one of the co-founders at Perch. Here's how things would typically go for us. We would have some bank reach out to us because they'd have an MSP, because the bank would come to the MSP and they'd say, hey, we're looking for a SIM. My federal regulators say we need a SIM. So I Googled banks, SIMs, MSPs, and Perch came up. I'm like, cool, let's talk. And so I would do this conversation with the bank, with the MSP. We would one call close them. Everything goes great. A month later, I'm like, hey, MSP, everything's going great, right? They're like, yeah, they're getting reports in. The regulators are happy. Everything's good. I'm like, awesome. Well, you told me you have like 65 other clients. Let's get going. And they're like, what are you talking about? None of them are asking for a SIM. No one's asking for it. I'm like, oh, we got an education problem. The problem is you guys are just sort of order taking. And if they're not asking for a SIM, you don't know what to do. And so I'm like, let's do this. Let me not sell. Put me in front of 25 of your clients. I'm not going to use the word SIM. I'm going to talk about cybersecurity. I'm going to talk about how the game has changed. I'm going to talk about where like they haven't caught up. And instead of like buying something, they should do a risk assessment. They should find out where they actually stand. And I'm telling you, we built a company off of education. And so when I left ConnectWise after they bought us, I'm thinking, what do I want to do in life? And I'm like, well, I love to educate. I love to teach others. And so I'm going to build a company called Empath Cyber that's all about helping MSPs grow in their cybersecurity journey, because you don't hire from Huntress. You don't hire from ScalePad. You don't hire from CrowdStrike. You hire from the AT&T store. You hire from the local auto dealer, and you find people that love technology and have a great personality. You got to train the rest of the way up. So then this is where Alex comes into the picture, this little rascal. I'm like, Alex, let me show you this idea that I have. And Alex kind of smirked at me and told me what an idiot I was. And Alex, what did you tell us?
Nobody wants another fucking portal to log into.
There it goes.
I'm pretty sure those are the exact words I used.
Can I live bleep people
You
out?
said you wanted spicy.
Yeah, spicy's good. I'll take it.
Only way
you
said spicy, Luis. You said spicy.
I did mark the
and that is a
video as not
quote,
for kids.
So it's
so
historically accurate.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be shown to some underage kids, and then we get in trouble. But
there goes ScalePad's monetization.
It's historically accurate, sir. Yeah, there it is. There it is.
Okay, so nobody wants another portal. Carrie, because this is already controversial as it stands, and so what happens then?
Well, there's a problem, right? There's too many things buried behind portals and MSPs. It's part of the reason that Empath is going to be successful is that we're bringing tons of things into one portal. But what happened then was Wes kind of ran away sad and went, well, this mean guy just squashed my idea. And then he came back to me and said, I hear you, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I went, well, I think you should, but just know that's a problem. Right. So he runs away and kind of starts it. And then he came back to me and we just talked a lot over that next couple of months. And finally I sat him down and said, maybe you didn't think big enough when you were thinking about this empath thing. And I dragged Kyle on a call and the three of us sat down and talked about it and said, we can talk about a lot more than cybersecurity because MSPs don't know how to build a sales program. They don't know how to build account managers. We built Lifecycle Insights off of training them how to build VCIOs. They need training everywhere. And Kyle's coming at this from the other angle and going, they need operational maturity. They need to understand how to read a P&L and what the difference is between a P&L and a balance sheet and all of these other things that just aren't taught by the vendors who are really just using education to sell a series of licenses. And so that's where Empath, as it sits today, was really born.
Now, there's probably levels or a spectrum of priority in all the things you just listed because, obviously MSPs go through a journey and a lot of them enter the market as a single person owner operator type of business. And then they, hit up different challenges depending on the particular journey that they're chasing down. So, in the marketplace of education, which is kind of what I envision this is going to turn into to some extent, how is the priority stacked in terms of where does an MSP need to go first? Because in theory, all these things are important and you shouldn't deprioritize any one of them, but time is finite and so on and so on. So how do you guys think about the prioritization of education as you go build an MSP?
Well, I don't think it's about the MSP. I think it's about the people.
About the people.
There you go. Yeah.
What was that?
And to Kyle's point,
I was to say, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time.
One bite at a time. Yeah.
Right. And that's how they're going to have to tackle education, right? Everybody starts in a different place, and each person is going to be on their own unique learning journey to build out where they're going with their individual growth. This is about career growth of humans that adds up to amazing growth at an MSP.
Yeah.
And also I'll say each MSP has their own learning journey too, right? In the sense of the way one MSP approaches education might be a lot different than the way the next one does. In other words, maybe I'm a large, $35 million MSP with, 2 to 3 million EBITDA, and I'm on a track to go acquire some more MSPs. And maybe I have acquired one and we're not rowing in the same direction. And maybe we have a lot of content and training material that we already have in place. Maybe I'm MSPB and I just hit 1 million and I'm just trying to go and figure out how do I get to this next stage? How do I go hire an executive team? And how do I build out my first VCIO? And how do I begin to really start standardizing a security stack and anything in between, right? MSPs are different in their learning journeys and where they're at. And so, we really want to make sure we account for that and give MSPs the capabilities of saying, we want you to have a customizable approach to it, but also have the accountability built into it to say, if our techs are coming back and our VCIOs are coming back and they're saying words like, well, there's too many fires burning, I don't have time to go upskill and learn and get better. That's not their problem. That's your problem as the owner. And so we want to make sure that we free them up by even doing some things like letting them have accountability in the platform to where we can push tickets in for learning and making sure that they're actually committed and accountable to going through this journey to get better. Because at the end of the day, Luis, MSPs are not going to get better by osmosis and just figuring this out. They've got to get to a stage where we're really starting to march in lockstep, and ownership is set that as a mission priority. I'll just give an example of this, then I'll shut up because I've talked enough. We have a friend who used to run corporate training for Panera Bread. And he said, Wes, this problem is not just an MSP problem. He said, this exists everywhere. He said, did you know we had 100,000 employees at Panera Bread? And the average tenure is 6 months. So no wonder you go into Panera A and man, this Panera is just singing along. Great customer service. Food comes out, on time. It's hot and fresh. You go to Panera B and it's a dumpster fire. It's worse than McDonald's. And he goes, the problem that we have is we have no consistency in how we do this. And he called it hip to hip. He's like, everything we do is hip to hip training. And so because of that, you have inconsistencies in this. And so he's like, we made it a mission and we spent millions of dollars trying to fix that. And that's where I think we're all at, including MSPs. We are very hip to hip in how we approach training.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but I think the client experience and the need for consistency is driving a lot of that challenge. And I think a lot of owner operators are so hell bent on replicating themselves that they often, just deflect or defer starting somewhere to do the journey. And then there's a lot of frustration, because I'll tell you, in my own experience and my own journey, the thing I probably enjoyed the least, to not say that I hated it, was simply just having to take my eye off the ball of executing with the clients to become a babysitter. And it reminds me of Peter Melby's session that he's been quite popular for the last couple of years doing, which is boss or babysitter. And it comes down to execution, I think, is a lot of what MSPs tend to forget to think about from a true framework inside the business. Here's this layout of the things that I want to accomplish, and how do I start executing on this, and how do I stay consistent even doing my own tasks. You see this a lot in the sales and marketing, peer-to-peer groups and stuff like that, because people fail because they just didn't stick with it long enough. And I find like that people challenge and that education challenge is very similar, no doubt. Kyle.
Oh man, that's 99% of the problem is we think these frameworks are the easy button, right? I don't care if it's EOS or scaling up, or from an MSP perspective, right? The true methods and the C levels, and right, we think the framework will get us to success. But what we forget about as entrepreneurs, we obsess about the framework, but how does that trickle down? Right. And it's not that the framework needs to be doctrine, but the framework needs to be attempted and attempted and attempted and attempted. And then you make a small tweak, and then attempted and then attempted. Right. That discipline is what gets you to the next level. It's not the tell-all document by itself.
And by the way, and I got this insight from chatting with Chris Day a few weeks ago. Sometimes those small decisions can be painful. And so like there's a certain degree of pragmatism that you need to sort of keep in your peripheral view to be like, well, I know that's going to hurt, but it just has to be done. And I think a lot of owner operators are trigger shy in that sense, and not wanting to make this small change that might be painful because they could perhaps, band-aid it another way. But that's, the tech debt or the business debt that comes into play down the stream, I think is a real problem too.
But you touched on something important earlier. You said, it took my focus away from the client when I would go do training on a new employee. And even if we are executing at a really high level, if our training is all still hip to hip, even if it's not me that has to train, if it's somebody who's 2 or 3 levels down from me in the organization, I'm still losing a really qualified billable resource, making them inefficient to train someone else, and they can only pass along the amount of information that they have in their head. And this is one of the problems with one-to-one coaching and one-to-one teaching is you can only learn so much as the guy sitting next to you knows or remembers or learned in their journey.
Yeah. And by the way, as soon as I said that,
problem.
As soon as I said that, Alex, I realized it might be misconstrued, because I didn't mean it like I shouldn't spend the time training an employee, but rather that in many cases we feel beholden to the client experience. And it's a sort of a chicken and egg problem. Like, do I not give my client good service to go train my employee? And because I don't have any other capacity to deal with the issue, then you kind of have to make these choices. But that is, I think, in itself, one of the challenges and issues. But speaking of
that hip-to-hip training just creates inefficiency.
Absolutely. But speaking of challenges and issues, and I love when a group of founders are out there sort of shouting from the hilltops, the challenge that they're going to solve and the thing they're going to help make better. But I'm always curious to know, what challenges you see internally that you guys face as you go out to sort of build a platform or build a following, or really trying to get people to understand the need for what you're offering. And so, I don't know, get spicy. As we said at the beginning of the chat, tell me something that you guys are really thinking about as a challenge that might affect your ability to go to market as a platform.
There's mountains of challenges. The most pervasive and prescient one for me is let's not embarrass ourselves here. Let's not completely crash and burn and get people excited and juiced up and say, yeah, I believe this, but Empath is a garbage delivery. Those guys don't know how to execute. Wow, what a failure. I'm not kidding you. Those things keep me up at night when I say that. But let me tell you, you asked for spicy, so I'll give you spicy. I don't believe that we've done a good job. Is speaking as a vendor, I don't believe we've done a good job with holistic education. And what I mean by that is when I mentioned that whole like helping people, get educated in cybersecurity at my perch days. Let's be honest, it's self-serving. I was doing it because I want you to buy more perch, and so if I can teach you just what you need to know about that one piece, and you're better at selling and understanding threat detection and why you need it, then you sell more perch, I win. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm not doing full justice to the MSP by teaching a bit of this and a bit of this and a bit of this. And you talk about the large private equity funded, the ConnectWises and the Kaseas that are out there. I think they're doing. You asked for a hot take. I think they're doing in their mind is right, their heart is right. But at the end of the day, it's all about how do I just get more money? How do I squeeze more bottom line out of this? And so we're still missing a holistic approach to being better at your MSP. And I'm not saying that Empath is the only way to do that, but I am saying our success is literally off that one KPI. It's not how many perches I sell. It's not how many huntresses I sell. It's not how many whatever I sell. It's literally, can I help MSPs grow in their journey? Because if I don't do it well, then they walk away from us. And so that's a big thing that I think we're really trying to solve for. And it's a monumental challenge, because if we fail, then the company fails.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me process that for a second, because to Kyle's comment in the chat, what if I execute and what if I focus? I think education has this, I guess, innuendo that what if I train my people and they leave? And then there's that famous phrase of what if you don't and they stay? And so there seems to be sort of an internal battle in whether somebody can really or does really want to dedicate the kind of resources needed to training, because it's not a light, feathery load. It actually is a heavy lift. And for somebody that's new to the industry, like you said, you're hired from the AT&T store and whatnot, these folks have a tall mountain to climb in terms of knowledge and just breadth of client opportunity and the different types of clients. Never mind internal IT, just has to work with one group of users. Imagine coming into an MSP and you're working with 50 different clients, 50 different takes on how things are done. And then, of course, the lack of standardization, all the other challenges that growing MSPs are going through in that journey. So walk me through a bit of your own, I guess, assessment of this internal battle of where do I make the decision to focus on the double click of education?
So it's a fantastic question. We've actually talked about this, Lewis. And one of the things is it's the insecurity of the operator or the owner that you're really trying to unpack there, because, if I educate them and they leave, that then is a direct insecurity of I can't train the next guy to be at the level of the guy leaving. And unpacking that, right, they see it as a recruitment problem because they're looking for a unicorn. And if there's one thing I learned in all my years at Best Buy and doing a lot of turnarounds where we're replacing people just like Panera every 6 months to a year, how do I get them as actionable, efficient, and productive as fast as possible? Now, this has two benefits, right? The owner's time to ROI of a new employee comes faster. But on the other side of the fence, an employee now is directly appreciative to the business, going, oh my God, they've given me a skill so quickly that I can only thank them for. So you start to tackle this problem. And we were talking to Peter Kajawa probably about a month ago now, and he gave us this metaphor where so many MSPs think that they are the professional football team, right? They're going to find the A-list players. They're going to get the unicorns that bring them to the Super Bowl. And where Peter challenged us was MSPs are more like a college football team or maybe a high school football team, to where we have to be the team that recognizes you're only going to have this employee for the next 4 years. You need to make those 4 years as best as possible so that you can get them to the next stage in their career, but also knowing they're going to be gone in 4 years. And if you can build that talent factory to get them from year one to basically drafted, then you literally are not only altruistic, but you have cracked the code to scale your business and achieve economy of scale, which an MSP business is.
Now, I want to touch on this timeline of ROI on a new hire, because I think I went in my own journey. One of the things we realize is it takes a lot of effort and time just to do the recruiting part, just to try and go and find potential candidates, never mind the actual hiring and training and all the other onboarding process. But so we finally, at Ook, we finally started working with a recruiter that we established a pretty decent relationship with. And I see more of these MSP hiring outfits starting to pop up because this is clearly a challenge and a time constraint. But in Canada, you can provide a 90-day probation for a new hire. But we were finding that it was 6 or 7 or 9 months before we had a sense of whether the person was a fit technically, culturally, or otherwise. And so we ended up going back to the hiring recruiting agency, be like, guys, this 3-month guarantee on the hires is not working for us. We're going to need to, can we work with a 6-month timeline? Because if the person doesn't work out, then, they guarantee their rate, they'll help you find another person, all that stuff. But what I realized is how can we shorten this ROI from 7, 8, 9 months to 3 months? And, you hear stories, they sound like fables, of mature MSPs getting their new hires up to speed in 3 months. And I've never seen it, but I'm sure maybe you guys have come across it. What has been your experience in the realistic ROI of a new hire?
Well,
Sounds
I think
like a Kyle
the
question.
experience that I've seen is that most MSPs don't know what to. Well, he's actually working on this. This is the thing that he's going to share with you probably today, Wes. But he and I have been having a lot of conversations about this because most MSPs don't have a real, true, dedicated onboarding process. Our onboarding process is 6 days worth of ConnectWise videos, some time hip to hip with Bob, and go start answering printer tickets, right? It's not a real, true onboarding. We haven't done anything to make sure that our employees are successful. And yesterday, Kyle sent me the first 90 days of an employee fully documented out. And my God, it's scary, all the things that we need to get that person through. And my immediate response was, nobody's going to do that in 90 days. It's going to take 180. So to your point of 3 months not being enough and needing 6 months, that's exactly what I said to Kyle yesterday when he gave me this list of all the things that if you do a full and complete onboarding, I mean, it's monumental to
I think we lost him.
Airport
And we
Wi-Fi.
lost him.
Yeah, and
And
Todd
if I could-
commented
if
in
I
the
could-
chat. I love Todd's comment. The training timeline checks out because he's obviously worked with a lot of MSPs at these sort of early stages, and he's seen firsthand. Todd and I worked together fully managed a while back too, and so he knows firsthand how long it takes to get somebody online, even at what you'd consider a mature MSP. But go ahead, Kyle. I know you had another comment.
No, and it's funny is when I built that checklist, a little bit of it was homogenized for my MSP actually, where we were hiring really fast. I mean, we were hiring anywhere between 3 and 5 employees a month. So this became a problem of employee churn and also burn rate of those employees, right? What is the lag of them getting to production? And where, right, the definition that I handed Alex was like an extremely mature side of the scale, right? Could you get this done within a 90-day period? You have to assume when you bring somebody on that you're doing it before it's an immediate need. Like a lot of times, I think as MSPs, we hire so close to that threshold of all of my employees are going to quit because they're burning out,
Or later.
that there's no way or later, right, after they're already burning out, that there's no way you could dedicate them to get the training done that they needed to. And one of the things that I took from Best Buy and then into my MSP was I want to hire 2 or 3 months prior so I can have them full production within 90 days so that they can directly become 100% accountable, is how I would phrase it, is I'm willing to fire them after 90 days if they can't perform to the expectations of their job. Now, I get it. That's an extreme way of verbalizing that, but it was also immediately accountable to their profit sharing, their bonus platform, because I knew they had everything they needed to be successful. Now, this also goes into promotions, lateral moves, top moves, right? Like they get that same benefit, but can we get them to that place to earn that type of freedom?
Yeah. And well, there's so much impatience, again, to Todd's comment in the chat. Yeah, it sucks to hire under pressure because, at some point you're like, well, but we need somebody now. And maybe you settle and maybe you're just creating more work for yourself when you need to let them go in 3 months because it was just a complete mismatch of culture and technical capabilities or anything else for that matter. So
well, beyond that, Lewis, how painful is it when you have to let somebody go because you did not give them the time to become a great employee?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all on the owner. Yeah. On the operator. No doubt.
And then what about the other end of this pipeline? How do we keep people that are high performing here longer? Right? Like that's the other aspect that I don't know that we've answered this. And I don't know if you've seen this. LinkedIn did this study, I don't know, about a year ago, and they said 94% of employees said that they would stick around longer if their company invested in career development. Oh my goodness. Right. And then I know there's another one by Forbes. Here it is. I actually have this one written down because it's a really good one. So Forbes did this study and found that the employers that have comprehensive training programs have 218% higher income per employee than companies without, and also 24% higher profit margin. So there's an element too of the other end of the pipeline, making sure that we're doing all this so the good people stick around.
Yeah.
Well, and in an industry where we do nothing but stress over low margins and crappy EBITDA, like that last one is just common sense. If we train our people, we make more money.
Yeah, I think the training thing is, and let me add one vector of maybe complexity to the whole conversation about career and training, because one of the things that's kind of obvious, but perhaps not common sense, is that in a small MSP, the idea or concept of career path is kind of missing, in the sense that, you hire a level 1 tech, and a lot of people think of career path as a vertical ladder exercise, but nobody kind of drills into the horizontal complexities of a role, or the accountability, or how do I, and a lot of owner operators will say this: I'd love my employees to behave more like business owners, or pulling out those attributes and characteristics from people through training so that they have a better relationship with clients. Or there's so many little aspects to horizontal growth, as I call it when I have this conversation, than this sort of perceived vertical ladder climbing, that I think MSPs in their early stages of growth are kind of forced to think about this now, because they otherwise can't really offer. It's like, okay, well, dude, yeah, we're hiring you as level 1. Maybe in a couple of years you'll be level 2. Woohoo! That's not a super exciting career path thing to look forward to necessarily if you're a millennial and you're accustomed to switching jobs just to make a vertical leap in career and income and all these things. And so, what has been your research or conversations with MSPs about this career pathing story? I think that's super interesting.
So to talk about the employee path, hint, hint, I like to challenge those statements. I wish all of my employees would act like business owners. What you're ultimately saying is, I'm not mature enough to tell my employees what is expected of them to accomplish on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So I need them to just handle chaos. That's a tough thing to digest.
I really didn't ask you here to come and state common sense stuff that, that was not the whole point here. I kid.
So let me sugarcoat it.
He has a way of making us feel judged and attacked.
Yeah. Get spicy, please. Get spicy.
Well, no, and this is the whole E-myth, right? This is Michael Gerber talking about the accidental entrepreneur that doesn't understand taking their business from a consulting practice into a service practice, right? Where you go from a dollar per hour model to an economy of scale model. And that's fine, right? And this is where, even from Empath, we have to figure out, how do we educate the owners on the importance of investing in your team and these employee paths, these learning pathways that they need to go through? Because there is a direct correlation, and I saw this at my MSP. If the very first day I taught them how to read a P&L, the very second day I taught them how cash worked its way through the business. Because what was the one thing I never wanted? I never wanted them to rear up and tell me they weren't going to put timesheets in. They didn't see the value in timesheets. They didn't see the value in showing us how long they were working on a customer. I wanted to show them that there is a success that we have defined as an MSP that they were directly attributable to. And if they could help us succeed and they could allow new customers to come in, then I could allow them to move horizontally into a further discipline in their job role, right? Whether it's a tier 2 or a cyber, or I had some that wanted to move into like finance and HR because that was their ultimate career path. So being able to have that conversation of, here's how I can promote you and here's how I won't be able to promote you, goes such a long way. But so many of us are afraid to have that conversation with our employees.
Let me double click on that for a sec, because I think you're tapping into something that I often summarize as perhaps bias for action. And it's one thing to talk to a group of founders who all are A-type personalities, by the way, and have an extreme bias for action. It's like, we're going to go and get this done, and we already have a mental framework that we have founded our entire go-to-market ability on, is the ability to execute on these things. But I don't know that everybody innately has this sort of bias for action. So I'm wondering, have you thought about this? How do you cultivate a bias for action? Because some of it is like, you can give people, the whole teach a man how to fish, but I think that it's up to them to sort of find the motivation to execute and do it consistently. And so, but that's also like a mental bias. And I'm, just talk me through a bit of your thoughts on that.
If I had $1 for every MSP that's come to me saying, hey, Kyle, can you help me grow my MSP fast? I would have a lot of dollars. And I'm sure, Lewis, you would too, right? They all want fast growth. But there's also the conversation of the founder mentality is a lot different than the CEO mentality, right? The stomach to figure out accountability is really an exercise of developing the expectations of the employees that you have in your organization, right? Everyone wants accountability, but no one fixes expectations. So what we have really struggled with when it comes to learning, and we think we're going to get pretty good at this, actually, this is part of one of our core tenets of Empath, is what does accountability look like with education? What are the reporting mechanisms that someone like a service manager can utilize to say, hey, my employee had this 90-day track. Now I don't need to go log into 47 portals to make sure that they did take the trainings that we told them would help them on their career path. Right, that's an accountability in the inverse of, we have double checked it, right? The military is all about trust and verify. Let me get that verification part done really, really, really well, so that if it does come to an accountability conversation, then there is no subjectiveness to it. It said, hey, I told you to take this and you didn't. We had time blocked off and you didn't. Now it's an integrity problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's this, Jacko, or the guy that has the book on extreme ownership. There was some interview I was watching where he talks about attributes, and in the hiring process, this is interesting because a lot of people want to hire to solve prescient technical issues and challenges, and perhaps not a lot of thought is given to attributes and culture and all these things. But they talked about specifically how when the plan goes off the rails, the only thing that solves that generally is people's attributes. And you don't train attributes necessarily. People's skills and training will help them solve the things that are planned for. But the unplanned for stuff is where attributes come in. This is where you get things like integrity, accountability. And so it's interesting to sort of give people a framework to understand how to hire for that. So I don't know that we have this training or this knowledge as owner operators of a small business. Like, nobody's taught us what good integrity looks like. We kind of have a feeling about it, but not necessarily how to identify it in a candidate for hire. Everybody puts on their best face during the interview process, of course. And so
can we rewind just a tiny bit into accountability? Because the one thing Kyle didn't mention is that accountability is bidirectional. How many MSPs has the owner run through and said, everybody's going to get training. I'm assigning you Microsoft training and you Microsoft training and you Microsoft training. And then they leave the room and the bullpen goes back to doing what the bullpen does, and the phone rings and the printer ticket comes in and we go put out fires, right? And 2 months later, the owner comes back through and says, hey, how are we doing on that training? And of course, nobody's taken any of it. And so there's a certain expectation from owners, at least in my experience, that our employees are going to be as excited about the business as we are, and they're going to want to go home and study and read boring computer manuals and go through all this stuff because we were excited about it, because we had ownership, right? And so we've got to get to a point too where owners take the accountability and say, it is part of my job to make sure that Kyle and Wes each get a half hour a week, or an hour every 2 weeks, or an hour a week to get some training done, and then I go put them in a quiet room and have them drop their cell phone in a bucket outside the room and go log into a computer that's not theirs, that doesn't have any of their Teams messages popping up and all the blinky lights and things, so that they can go somewhere and actually focus and dedicate time to this. And in exchange for that, I expect that employee is going to document that time on their timesheet and show me that they did the work. and that they're going to work towards a career path that we've agreed is in their best interest. So now I can take that tier 1 engineer and turn them into an account manager, turn them into a tier 2 or a tier 3, turn them into a salesperson, whatever they want to be when they grow up. But instead, we just approach it right now from a point of, hey, you're a tier 1 guy, you're a printer monkey, like you're just the meat shield for the help desk, and yeah, maybe one day you'll grow out of it. Good luck. And that's the wrong
meat
side from
shield for the help
both.
desk.
Is this not a thing, right? Is this not a thing? Go read Reddit. These guys, that's exactly what these guys feel like.
That I have to put it in the
this
chat.
This is a real problem today.
I need to keep this chat note. A meat shield
Lewis.
You
broke Lewis.
I think you just broke me. I can't even get my thought out.
Comment in the comment if you guys have ever felt like a meat shield in the tech industry.
And let me just getting serious again for a second. I think there was a conversation earlier around the setting of expectations, because I think it's really tough to go expect accountability without setting the expectations for accountability. And so there's levels and stages obviously to that. And I love the idea that you're thinking about this, because clearly just education for the sake of education sometimes I think misses the mark on all these other, I guess what you would call soft skills, but these are the hard skills, really. And so super interesting that you guys are thinking about all these things. Speaking of education, let me ask you this. As you set out to build a company around really education, did you ever think about whether education is, as a word, maybe not spicy enough to sort of get people interested? Like, is education boring, really, and something that people kind of, education, because it doesn't feel exciting?
It is a bit, maybe a lot. Let me walk you through our thoughts a little bit, because I often find myself using the term upskill over education. But even education versus training, right? Like training, I can train my dog. I can train my dog to like put her paw up when I want her to shake, right? I can do that. And a lot of times that's the maximum of what employers invest in, is just training. Let me just give you the bare minimum to do something. You don't understand the surrounding reasons why. You don't feel ownership over that. You don't have it. It's literally, I just taught you the smallest thing to do a job. The next level up, though, is education. I kind of look at education as like this approach to how do I gain knowledge to like affect and make myself better and make my company better, right? Like, what's the knowledge I need to know that surrounds the why, it goes beyond just the how and gets into the why of it, right? But I also think of this term like upskill, because I think it brings along a connotation of like, how do I continue to hone and get to a new place? Not just how do I be better at what I'm doing presently in my operations and my job, but how do I have a pathway? What is that pathway? Where am I going? Where do I want to end up? Where am I trying to do? Because upskill is about just bringing this for myself and getting to this next level. And I think for a lot of reasons, we leave an organization. I know for me, I feel like I hit a wall. I feel like I've done all I can do. It's not that I'm unhappy in my job. It's not that I dislike my colleagues. It's not that I'm not making enough. I've hit a wall and I want to do more. I want to grow into more. I don't want to stagnate. And high performers have that capability, and upskill kind of gives me that ability to say, man, this is where I can go and this is where I can grow into. I'm sticking around for that, right? And so to me, that's it. You go from training to education to upskill, and I tend to find myself using that word upskill quite a bit because of it.
I like it. I think that in general, and you made this comment earlier, Wes, you said, I think vendors have not been great at holistic education. And I do believe that to be true. And I think when I talk to other vendors, even some of the conversations we have internally at ScalePad, we're really starting to think, how do we bring a holistic sort of education or enablement of the partner? Because obviously, the vendors have to focus on their tool stack and things. But I love the idea that you can maybe abstract the tool set here to focus on an entire, real, true, holistic education of the entire operational process of an MSP. Because there's a lot of holes that the one vendor is going to leave if all they're training for or educating for is their particular product, or how to click on this screen or the other screen and so on. So,
it's very traditional confirmation bias, right? Like at the end of the day, your confirmation bias is always going to be pointing you to, I need to either reduce churn or sell more of my widget. And that's not bad, right? But at the end of the day, we do miss some things, especially in the more cyber realm where things get a lot more complicated than we're used to. on what is the root of this education or point of this tool. And I'm not the best person to talk about this, but this also doesn't mean that the tool's not important. My dad always used to say, like, right, like you have to pick the right tool for the job. And sometimes we have to lead into that. And we've been calling it dynamic pathways quite a bit. How does a pathway change based off of the vendor that you use? And one of the big challenges that we're seeking to resolve and build with Empath is how do the vendors start to participate with Empath to where once we get that holistic side finished, then we can go and add on all of the vendor focused training. So now I truly can have a single portal that gets me from holistic to actionable.
Let me dive into an
Luis,
aspect.
you said something earlier.
Go ahead, Alex.
Well, let me just said something earlier, and Wes answered the what keeps you up at night question. I'm going to give you my what keeps me up at night. My what keeps me up at night is that we build this company with education in mind, and some vendors who are used to protecting their little fiefdoms decide that they don't want to participate. We are building this with the intention of being a vendor neutral Switzerland. And the worst thing that could happen for education and for our community is that we teach all of the core skills, and the vendors say, yeah, but you're not worthy of our content, or we choose to keep our content over here in our closed little corner. Because think about it from this perspective. If I go to, and I'm just going to pick a random vendor, I'll pick one that's friendly to us so that I can pick on them in public, but I'm going to go pick CyberFox. And I want to go pick CyberFox to help deploy my zero trust strategy. If I go to CyberFox for training, they're going to tell me what buttons to click before I can do anything of value. I need to learn what the hell is zero trust. How does zero trust impact the compliance requirements that I have, insurance or NIST, and how does that impact the business where this is all going? I need to do all of that before I get to taking a CyberFox training, but I need to be able to have all of that in one learning pathway for the employee. And
yeah, the broken pathways is a real challenge. And I think, MSPs are also very, very opportunistic in the sense that, oh, if we do this training, we'll get some extra points from this vendor to sell their hardware. And so some of these things are driven often by other reasons, not sort of this holistic opportunity for growth or career pathing or just individual achievements. A lot of people have a mentality of continuing education and continuous growth. And sometimes you come across the folks that don't. And I totally lost the track of the previous question I wanted to ask. But I think the cultural fit of education is interesting. And again, it's always an afterthought in my experience because you just want to hit the ground running. You have revenue goals, and sometimes these are secondary issues. But in the process of building a platform, I imagine that there's going to be things that are maybe way too specific for this holistic pathway. So tell me a bit about how you think about, like, if you want vendor A to come and drop all their training materials into your portal, how does this, and again, there's going to be competing priorities. There's many vendors that have the same type of solution, and now they're all, suggesting, well, here's the way you should be doing zero trust, but no, here's our way of doing zero trust. And so tell me a bit about how you're, maybe pre-solving for some of these future challenges.
So
I think if we educate on
beyond
the
just
basics. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I was going to say is that beyond just the widget guys, right? There's going to be competing frameworks. There's going to be competing coaches. There's going to be competing methodologies on how to run your business, right? All of this stuff is subjective. And one thing in our very early talks that we all rallied behind is we didn't want thought leadership in the sense of we're just going to march behind one person's idea. Because if there's one thing I've learned in coaching MSPs, running my own MSPs, Sierra Pacific Group, is as long as you are accomplishing your goals, then that is the right framework for your business. But on the other side of the spectrum, your current system is perfectly designed for the results you're currently getting. So once in a while, I do need to change, and I do need to figure out whose model gets me 80% of the way there, so I can add that uniqueness, that 20% of the way that I can differentiate myself on the market. So with these pathways that we're starting to build, we're going to build them so dynamic in the sense of, if I really like Alex's sales methodology on how to sell managed services, I can select him as my coach in order to now build out that pathway for our sales coaching education. And having the ability to have multiple thought leaders that just fit my style better. Like, if there's one thing I've learned in coaching, is someone rather listen to Todd than me any day of the week. I mean, I'd rather get coached by Todd than myself. But right, there's just some people like hearing people differently. Some people hear things differently, and some people talk about things differently.
And also, to follow on that thread a bit too, to follow on that just a bit too, it also depends on stages of maturity and growth for your MSP, right? So like, there are some leaders of the zeitgeist that are, at the end of the day, they'll only get you to 10 million in revenue. They'll never get you higher than that. They've never gotten their own MSP higher than that. And they wonder why all their MSPs hit a brick wall there. Okay, that's fine. It's great to get there, but at some point, perhaps you graduate and you move on. Maybe Wes is good at teaching you X, Y, and Z, but really bad to get you to the next stage when it comes to some area of cybersecurity, right? Or, maybe I happen to know a whole bunch about banks because I have a banking background. I'm terrible at CMMC, which is true. So I think there's also that element too of, I don't think we play favorites, and I don't think we pick winners. I think that idea of sort of like a decentralized approach and letting folks come in and letting vendors come in and let them kind of participate in here. I think it's a two-way street. I can't just say, hey, we're going to be, Switzerland, and we're not going to play favorites. We're not going to do it one way. Well, it goes back to us too, in the same sense of saying, well, we're also not going to gate certain ideas and thoughts out, right? We have to understand that MSPs are going to grow in the way that they want to grow. And that's just part of how it goes. And that can change and navigate and ebb and flow and evolve over time from one MSP to the next.
And I have the perfect example of that. I went to an Enable event in Raleigh a couple weeks ago, and there was a session on accelerating growth that Robert Wilbur and Chris Massey put together. A super impactful session because it really kind of approached pathways to accelerated growth. And what was interesting was the dichotomy of seeing one MSP that did it with a very sales-heavy and sales-centric approach, and another one who doesn't have a single salesperson in their organization. They both went to a $30 million MSP in the space of a few years. And so this is, I think, the leading issue is that there is no one way to do things, and whatever framework is going to be best for your situation and your particular execution style is kind of where you need to latch onto those things. But
that works really well when you're talking about sales. But I will argue, I'm going to push back a little bit. Where it comes to technical frameworks, there certainly are best practices, and vendor marketing will tend to lead you one direction. But you made the comment that like each vendor approaches zero trust or does zero trust a different way. I'm sorry, there is only zero trust is a defined standard, and most of the vendor marketing has dragged it through the mud and tried to abuse it and call it whatever they want to call it in order to sell their widget or their product. And we're hoping to solve for some of that by teaching what zero trust actually is. And that's just an example, but teach it what it actually, the words actually mean. We do a terrible job in this industry of, creating new words or using them however we want. But if we teach the concept of zero trust first, so that people know what they're trying to solve for when they deploy a tool, they will deploy the tools, harder tools.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think, but my point is, zero trust may have not been the perfect example, but aside from the technical framework and theory of zero trust, here's my tool, and this is why my tool is better than your tool. And so the implementation always varies, is my point, I guess. And so even in the execution of MSP, implementations are wildly different than the other. And so I think that's what's fascinating, because we like to dig in to our belief system, if you will. And I find this is a crutch many times, because, if you've thought something was a certain way all along, and suddenly you have to challenge your own morality and existence by changing your mind on a belief system that you've had for all this time, suddenly you may not be capable of doing that. And so this I think is sort of one of those interesting personal growth areas to try and challenge as you're trying to lead a business into accelerated growth, because a lot of things are going to come at you that you've maybe never done before, and you might have an opinion or idea about, but you are not willing to stray from your notions of how it should be. And so I think this is what's interesting about education or upskilling is I think, do you guys know Colin and Samir, the YouTubers that often interview celebrity guests and stuff like that? Have you seen any of their stuff?
I know who they are. Yeah.
So they interviewed this guy, Miles Fisher, and I can't believe how much I talk about this. I feel like a broken record, but it was so interesting. Miles Fisher is the guy that did all the Tom Cruise deepfakes, during the beginning of COVID.
Yep.
And the guy's sort of wildly broad, and he's in coffee, he's in AI, and so he comes on this interview, and he's just so articulate in the way he talks about things. It was riveting, like an hour and a half interview, and I couldn't believe that I spent 90 minutes listening by the time I realized how long had passed. But he talks about, how success is when luck meets opportunity. But he goes a step further to explain that you can increase the surface area of luck when you're aware of more than what immediately surrounds you. And I found this to be so powerful, and I'll repeat that. You can increase the surface area of luck when you're aware of more than what immediately surrounds you. And so think about that. Ooh. Education is often about exposing yourself to things that you may not even, by accident come across, but you have to kind of go do on purpose so you can gain perspective. And this is, people often talk about travel being this great purveyor of perspective in people's lives. There's so many other things in the realm of business that we're often just in our little echo chambers. And so talk to me a little bit about the echo chamber, this increasing the surface area of luck, and what things you imagine being able to do to get people out of their, racehorse blinders.
Ooh, I like this. And I don't know, this could be an entire episode on itself, I think. And Wes and I have been really grappling with the zeitgeist word because it fits everything so well right now. And I actually just did a rant on YouTube for like 17 minutes where we're in an echo chamber right now in the MSP industry, and IT Nation was a perfect example for this, where we're starting to see a generational bias. Right now, we have a lot of MSP owners that are on their way out and exiting their business, which is... There's not a single bad thing with that, right? I'm so supportive of getting them there. But because you're seeing that, you're seeing an obsession with a couple topics. One, how to prepare for sale, and two, how to prepare for post-sale. So we're seeing a lot of talks about EBITDA. We're seeing a lot of conversations about positioning. We're seeing a lot of conversations about how to operate your business. But what does that do to the MSP owner that's just started? Now they're seeing a lot of these narratives of, you're gonna fucking hate your business, sell it. And that's all they hear. If you're only a year in, what type of mind state does that put you in? What type of motivation does that get you to run a very successful business? What type of longevity does that give you? There's so many questions that get wrapped up around this, and how we approach that. This is where my brain has just been snowballing since then because of this whole idea, but how we avoid that. And I don't know if it is avoidable. Like, I have a feeling that there's always going to be some type of bias. But how do we make it so that ultimate different perspectives are always there to be digested? Well, I think be key.
I think I'll take the offer of getting on another episode. This will be Empath hosted, and we'll take this little topic apart, because I can see your thoughts are not even fully pieced together on this.
No,
like you're clearly working through it, and I find this an exciting topic to sort of unpack. But we're literally at the top of the hour. Alex's 1 hour free internet access is going to run out any second now.
It's already running out.
Yeah. But guys, thank you so much. I feel like there's no beginning and no end to this. Obviously, I think this is going to be an evolving conversation. I feel like you guys have this interesting mountain of a task ahead of you of creating a market for education in this industry, where it's kind of expected that there is some, but nobody's tackled it from this perspective. So very exciting. Wish you all the luck in the world. I wish you all the operational maturity in the world as you grow a platform for this kind of stuff. It's so interesting. But your final thoughts. Give me sort of what you wish. What is your personal goal out of this venture that you want to deliver? What do you want? What do you want people to remember you for at the end of the day?
I'll go first. These are always hard questions, but I think at the end of the day, life is truly very short. I think you only have two. If you're a true entrepreneur and you're really building businesses and getting them up and growing, you probably have 2 to 4 at bats before you just run out of energy and the inertia is gone. You just can't do it anymore, right? It's just so hard, and we're in the middle of the most difficult part of that journey right now because we're So I think about this. Perch was really difficult. I don't think that this is going to be any less difficult. And so I think for me, just knowing that we put a stamp and a legacy on, we helped solve a problem for MSPs. We made it better. We made life better. We moved the needle forward. And knowing that all of that hard work and effort was truly valuable to my friends in the industry, so that I'm not a laughing stock and someone that just came forward and tried to do something and completely failed and embarrassed himself and actually reversed our industry, right, by the work we've done and the MSPs that took the journey with us. That's what I don't want to have happen. And so that's probably what's present in front of me, Luis.
Well, I think there's a lot of folks rooting for you. And so I don't see it from that lens at all. I see it as how can we help, succeed or help you succeed in this endeavor as opposed to, well, you'd maybe suspect some people want you to fail, but I think there's a resounding majority of folks that are quite on the opposite side of that spectrum. Kyle, what are your parting thoughts?
So you said something earlier about, are you afraid of the word of education? And my brain has had one thing in there. Who running an MSP would ever make the statement, I don't believe in education for my employees?
I've heard it many times. Like, I don't believe in certification. You just go learn the stuff and figure it out. And, but there's, again,
But
there's
who
a
would tell
spectrum,
that to their
obviously.
employees?
Yeah, well, there's the culture.
Then there's the culture. So if there is one thing, and whether it's a marketing problem of is education the right word or not, it is showing the value of the people on your team and having the wherewithal to get them to another point in their career. That's the legacy that I would want to leave with Empath. How many MSPs were we able to show that we were able to create an entirely new generation of MSP professionals?
Let's put a counter on that platform. And we'll help you reach that goal, right? That's awesome. Love that. Alex, your parting thoughts.
Wes said he doesn't want to get laughed at, and I'll just say I've been getting laughed at my whole life, and I'm okay with that part. But this industry has been better to me than I could have ever possibly asked for. And so I'd like to build something that gives enough back to the industry to kind of make up for everything that I mean, Lifecycle Insights is an amazing run. It was an awesome product, and it continues to be an awesome product. But I would like to give back on the education side as much as MSPs gave to me as we built that last product. So at this point, I'm in a blessed place to just be able to work with two really cool dudes and do something really awesome. And that's really my focus. I'm lucky not to have to feel super pressured under this. And I just think that, this is the opportunity to go solve a big problem. Lifecycle Insights was kind of a big deal. It was a big thing. We were tackling a big problem. I think this one's bigger, and that makes it more fun. And like Wes said, you get like 2 to 4 swings at this. And I think this is my third after selling an MSP and selling a SaaS platform. I'm tired. So this will probably be the last one, and I'd like to go out successful and giving something back.
Well, by the way, I think your self-deprecating humor is part of the deal people know they make when they meet you. So we love it, we embrace it, and I think you should just dig into that because I think it works for you. Everybody loves
authenticity and transparency, my friend.
Yeah. Well, empathmsp.com is where you guys are located, if I'm not mistaken. And I realize, the platform's not out yet. But so tell me about, what can people expect if they go to the website and see a form to register? What's happening right now with your product launch?
Yeah, you can hit us up there easily, empathmsp.com. We do have, if you want to go take a sneak peek at what we're building, you've got a Calendly there. You're welcome to go jump into that. We'd be happy to give you a tour. We should be code complete sometime in first quarter of next year. So really coming close. I think Right a Boom will be our big coming out party. So we're excited about that event just because that'll sort of be the inauguration of all these things. And I'd love to chat with anybody that wants to see it in action.
Right on. Well, gents, congratulations in advance. I appreciate that you made a full hour of your time of not posting on LinkedIn to come hang out with me on MSP Confidential. For everybody else, we're here every Friday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, unless we're not. And so keep tabs on the YouTube channel. Subscribe there. Love the engagement. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Wes. Enjoy the travels. We'll hope to see you at an event very soon.
Thanks, Louise.
Thanks,
Ciao,
Louis.
everybody.
We'll see you on the road.